fight. We don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, we don't have to fight.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Just Chill with Oliver George, the season 1 finale nonetheless. But before we get to that, I want to remind you, if you are watching this on YouTube right now and you would prefer an audio-only version of the episode, you can get that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Opposite to that, if you're listening to this right now and you didn't realize there was a visual side of this show, please come check us out on YouTube. Wherever you find the show, please subscribe, share, follow, like, whatever it may be on that respective platform. It helps me to grow the channel and reach more viewers and more listeners, which is my ultimate goal here. And if you've already subscribed, thank you so much. Finally, if you want to contact the show for whatever reason, it's justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's episode. As I mentioned, it's the season 1 finale. The first episode of this show ever was put up on October 21st, 2019. So we're rounding the 1-year mark, and I honestly can't believe what a year it's been. Pandemic aside, 2020's been fucked up in a lot of ways, but when it comes to this show, I've been so proud at the work that I've put in, honestly, but also just I feel so lucky for the amazing people that I've been able to interview, whether it's peers from the comedy community here or people I've admired and respected my entire life, some of which from my childhood. Honestly, I couldn't be more happy with the way things have gone. So if you have watched this show or shared it or anything like that, thank you so much. And also thank you to all the guests who have come on this show. It's been a blast. Now, I should say, after this finale episode goes up, I'm going to be taking a few weeks off. There's a lot that goes into doing this. I have 3 kids, work at the hospital, and I do this show basically by myself. My dad does help when we're doing live recordings in studio, but other than that, it's all me. I'm editing everything. I'm wrangling guests. I'm doing the interviews themselves. So research as well. It takes a lot of time. So I'm going to chill for 3 weeks, I guess, 4 weeks maybe. I'm just going to do crafts and, exercise and just have some fun. So hopefully we're going to be recording new episodes in mid-November, end of November maybe, and then I'm thinking beginning of December to maybe mid-December we should be up and rolling with Season 2. I've already got a great guest lined up for the premiere of Season 2, so stay tuned for that. Now, back to the actual episode here. We're still in Season 1. I'm rambling on about Season 2. To end off this amazing season, epic guests. If you're a fan of Degrassi, you're going to love this one. I got the chance to sit down via Zoom with Pat Mastroianni and Stefan Brogren. If you're a fan of Degrassi, you know those names. That's Joey and Snake. Joey Jeremiah and Snake Simpson on my show. Can't even freaking wrap my head around that. But nevertheless, it happened, and it was a great chat. I do want to mention, though, we talk about Pat's new documentary at one point, so I want to make sure you guys know where to find that. It's called Narbo's Guide to Being a Broomhead, which probably sounds like a bunch of nonsense if you're not a Degrassi fan, but you know what? If you're not a Degrassi fan, go out and watch some damn Degrassi. You're going to thank me later. But anyways, you can find that documentary on Degrassitour.com. It's like $8 Canadian or something, so go watch that. It's amazing. And I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. What a fantastic episode. Please check it out. Thank you so much.
So, wow. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, guys. That's how I got to start off this, because this is, to interview even one of you would have been a dream come true. So to be able to chat with both of you at the same time is mind blowing for me.
Awesome.
Just big thanks for that. Honestly, a lot of people have been having a shitty 2020, and I have as well. My fiance and I both work in frontline in the hospital, so it's been rough in a lot of ways. But as far as
what do you do on the front line?
She's an ICU nurse, and I sterilize surgical equipment.
Oh, wow.
Mind you, I'm like more of a stay-at-home dad. I pick up shifts when she's sort of
right
or whatever. But it's been rough in that sense. But with the show, I feel like I've had a horseshoe up my ass. End of January, I got Strombo on, and then ever since then, I got to talk to so many people I've respected, like Kim Mitchell and Fred Penner and Spenny and Biff Naked and Body Break. So you guys are the season finale now, episode 32, I believe. And, it's been a veritable who's who of Canadian pop culture thus far. So I can't think of anything more serendipitous than this.
That's great.
And second of all, sorry to keep droning on here, but I want to thank you guys also just for the show. I was born in 85, so I was too young when you guys were first airing, but they started rerunning them in the end of the 90s on CBC. And I would come home every day after school when I was in middle school. And, the fashion was a little outdated, but the issues were the same. And it was stuff that I wanted to know about and needed answers to at that age. And, so I want to thank you guys for that.
Great. Thank you.
So now to start off, I'll get to some old school Degrassi stuff in a moment, but I wanted to talk about the new stuff going on. So the documentary that Pat just put out, which I just watched last night and absolutely enjoyed the crap out of. Actually, why am I saying crap? I can swear on here. I enjoyed the
You can
fuck
swear.
yeah, so I just wanted to maybe get Pat to sort of do the elevator pitch to my viewers, because I don't know if everybody knows about it, and it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you. I was just working on it today, actually. I have another version that's coming out in a few weeks, which is going to be a lot more behind the scenes, full panels. Because what I did with the Narbo's Guide to Being a Broomhead was I consolidated 2 days worth of Q&A panels into a 90-minute documentary. I wish I had a bigger budget. I wish I could have had more cameras. I wish I could have had wireless microphones and all those wonderful toys. But, we did the best with what we got. And ultimately, it was the content that was the most important part of the film. And folks like Stefan and Amanda Steptoe and Stacey Mistician and basically everybody that attended Palooza really stepped up and embraced what the event was all about. And that was just to celebrate the unsung heroes and tell our story. We've kind of been overshadowed with superstars like Drake and even Kevin Smith attaching himself to his fondness of the show. There's a whole army of people that work behind the scenes that were there through the long haul of the kids of junior high and high, and they never had a spotlight put on them. So that was my main mission with Palooza, was to put a spotlight on my friends.
And the documentary itself, was that something that came out of COVID, like because you couldn't do more Palooza in person?
No, I couldn't do more Palooza because I got a cease and desist order.
Oh, shit.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are actors from the show, but we don't own the license. We don't own Degrassi. It's a learning process for me, and I learned a valuable lesson that I couldn't create an event called Degrassi-pazoola without getting permission. So at the end of the day, this was a one-time event. The fine lawyers at DHX Media were kind enough to give me permission to do this event one time only. And so I took advantage of the opportunity, and I'm glad I did, because we got to praise one of the co-creators, Kit Hood, who unfortunately passed away only a few months after the event.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm blessed that opportunity took place.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I took away from that, was that you are an amazing public speaker, and you give like these Captain America level, like inspirational speeches. Honest to God, when you presented him with that award, there was a lot of misty-eyed moments and stuff, So
I learned it all from Stefan Brogren. He is.
I taught him everything he knows.
Well, I was going to say, Stefan, for you, when I watched it, I couldn't believe how funny you were, because Snake was always kind of a straight man to Joey's zany, wacky character. So, and I actually had a question about that, because I know you married a comedian. So I was going to ask, have you always been funny, and that's why you were drawn to a comedian, or did marrying a comedian make you a funnier dude?
Marrying a comedian has made me a sadder dude. Comedians are depressing. And listen, just on the comedian front, I love, my wife is the best. I did fall in love with her for her sense of humor. Definitely, that was definitely part of it, who she is. But my experience now in the comedy community is that most of them are bummers. And that's where they probably get their comedy from. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh yeah.
As far as being funny, I don't know. Listen, Pat and I have done speaking engagements for so many years together, and Pat is absolutely inspirational, and I'm always an asshole. And it's like, it's one of these things where I feel like we counter each other very well that way, and Pat's still really funny himself. He's a really funny guy, but I think he also likes to be inspirational in those moments when, like, he's got a packed room of Degrassi fans. He wants to make sure that they, all are feeling special. Yeah. And that the cast are feeling special, So
yeah, well, you could feel that empathy from him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's just, it really is like, I'm a bit of an ass that way, but I really want to put a smile on people's faces also. And I feel like sometimes I've done so much press for Degrassi, which can be such a heavy show, that sometimes I try to lighten it up a little bit so that we can just have a little bit of a laugh at the same time while you answer a question about a suicide in the storyline, so that there is some sort of juxtaposition between, the sadness or the deepness of the show.
Yeah, so everyone doesn't leave the thing bummed out,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's another thing I liked about Pat's documentary, was that you guys kept it uncensored, because it very much reminded me of the Jono Vision thing you guys had done back in the day when I was watching the show, except this was even more awesome because it was, Spike saying motherfucker and stuff.
That's Amanda.
I tell you, I wasn't expecting her to be so uncensored. I mean, I know that's the way she is in real life, and that's what makes her such an awesome person to be friends with. But we were all brought up in that age of CBC, and we were always told to watch the vulgarity, to watch our stories, to not give too much truth in our storytelling when we do interviews and whatnot, that we reserve the right to keep a personal life and a privacy that we don't share with the public. So for Amanda just to sort of let go of all that, and a bunch of other actors did that weekend as well, but I mean, I think Amanda really took full advantage of it and just made the audience realize that we weren't our characters, that we weren't these, you know, squeaky clean people in real life, that we were real people too. And I think Amanda wanted to tear down those walls.
I still like, though, that you chose to like not censor it when you put out the film, because you could have done that with the mindset of like, well, Degrassi has a lot of younger viewers, I don't want, you know, but I liked it because it felt like really like a long podcast, like a Degrassi podcast almost, with all these great conversations and viewpoints and experiences and stuff. So that was actually a question I was going to ask you much later, but do you think there's any chance of like a Degrassi podcast with interviewing various cast members every week? Because if you don't do it, I will.
There's already dozens of them out there. I'm sure Stefan can speak on that, because definitely Stefan, it was.
I mean, I talk about doing a podcast like every second week, and I just don't know if I want to do something that is dedicated to Degrassi. It would be fun to have a constant flow of Degrassi cast coming in to do interviews and stuff like that. Whatever I wanted to do personally, I'm not sure what that is yet as far as a podcast is concerned. I think it definitely has to have a Degrassi aspect to it. Yeah. And it's something that I probably want to do with my wife. So I don't know if there's a comedy aspect, a Degrassi aspect. I think that there's so much stuff out there right now, and I think that I just want to. I don't know what the audience is for it. I know there's a huge audience for Degrassi stuff, and it's just that I don't know if I want to spend too much time on the Degrassi front right now. Even though I love talking about Degrassi, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
it's been a huge part of your life for decades now. So wanting a breather is completely understandable.
And I also don't want, like, listen, there's a lot of people that are involved with the show that have fantastic memories of the show, and there's people that have not so fantastic memories of the show. And you know, you gotta figure out what that tone is if you're gonna do something. I don't know. It is something that I've tried to think about a couple times, and you know, I'm not sure yet. Hey,
don't rush into it. You know,
hey, get as many Degrassi kids as you can to be on your show. Just go for it.
This is a great start right here. Yeah. I wanted to ask about the Palooza. Was there, because I noticed a few people that weren't there. Some of them did appear in the stock footage, but was there anyone who just flat out refused to be a part of it?
You know what? I'll give them their privacy. And
fair.
But definitely there were a few people that just flat out said thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Like Stefan said, there's some people that have a positive memory with their experience on the show, and there's some people that are not, remembering the show that fondly or their time on the show. I can be straight up honest and tell you that myself. When I left the Next Generation in 2005, I didn't mention the word Degrassi for almost 10 years. I didn't speak to Stefan until I reintroduced myself to him back in 2016, asking him if he would like to join me on a thank you tour, where we went to conventions across the country. There does come a point where you get your fill of it, and I had reached that point for about a decade. I wanted to do other things, and I wanted to put it in the back burner. But then I came back around, and I embraced it wholeheartedly with the idea of celebrating our version of the series. But yeah, in terms of some of the cast that couldn't make it, there were lots of cast that wanted to come, but just for technical reasons couldn't make it. Irene Krakos, who played Alexa, was in Greece, and she would have loved to have been there. Dio Ade, who played BLT, was filming in LA, so he couldn't make it. So there were a lot of people that would have loved. And again, there was a limit to how many people I could actually host.
You guys had tons of people as it was. Yeah.
I started off wanting only 10, and we ended up with 25. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, no, it was great. When you mentioned that you had started in 2015 doing the conventions and stuff, that must have been when I met you. I have it's behind me over here. That's the Zit Remedy. And I met you when I was just trying to start doing some baby version of this show. I was doing like a man on the street thing, and I bugged the shit out of you, I'm sure. So it's kind of
cool. Was it at the convention?
5 years later, you actually are agreeing to be on my show, as opposed to me just like shoving a mic.
Sorry? Was it at the convention that we met with you, or?
I don't believe you were there. It was just
Oh,
Pat,
I wasn't
and it
there.
was in Cornwall at the Cape event. And the guys from Comic Book Men were there. And anyways,
Yeah.
it was a cool memory for me. And it's really trippy that you're here now, like, you know, as a bona fide guest, as opposed to me shoving a mic in your face.
And as a podcaster, you can imagine how many people approach us, because we are quite approachable online, and we engage with fans online on social media. We get asked a minimum 3 to 5 times a week to do podcasts. And you got to at some point say, okay, enough with the podcast.
Yeah, you only got so much time.
I do try to pick and choose, and you know, I'm glad we have this opportunity to speak now. But yeah, it just seems like everybody and their grandmother has a podcast, and I only want to do podcasts that are, you know, intelligent. People do their homework and they actually want to talk to you, as opposed to just grabbing somebody who's got some, you know, a little bit of notoriety.
Yeah, power leeching or whatever. No, I'm a true fan. I can say that. I wanted to say, as far as modern things that are going on right now, for Stefan, I wanted to talk to you about Canada Drag Race, and just what was your biggest takeaway from that experience? Because that show is a blast. My fiance is super into it, and I've caught quite a bit of it and laughed my ass off.
It was by far the most exciting thing that's happened to me in the past 8 months since COVID happened. Not 8 months. I should take that back, because I did have my honeymoon before COVID hit. It was, we shot it back in November, right? So it was a while ago, and it's one of those things you're like, I hope the show's a hit. I'm assuming it's going to be a hit. And also the ladies were awesome. I had such a great experience on the show. Just like, I was only there for a day, right? But it was like a 12-hour day that gets broken down into like 5 minutes on the show. But it was fabulous. I told them I would come back anytime, and they were very big on. They were like they were very thankful that I was doing it, because they said it's not very always received when they ask for straight guys to be on the show. They don't. I think sometimes they think they're going to be made fun of, which is awesome. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be made fun of. Like,
really.
It's all sort of joy and making fun of yourself, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And but I was like, are you kidding? I wouldn't have missed this. You know, it's absolutely something. I'm so honored that you guys wanted to have me. But it is one of those things that they said they have a little trouble sometimes. I think Tom Green did the show as well. But it was like, I think some people are just like a little weirded out. I mean, I got to tell you, I have friends who are just like, have come to me afterwards and be like, I've got to tell you, like, I really love drag queens. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, I mean, I can't date them because they have a penis. But on the show, they're beautiful. And like, they're telling me this, like, they're opening up to me about this, like all their personal, choices and likes. And I'm like, that's hysterical. But that's what the show's supposed to be about. It is about sort of like exploration and having fun. And they're all clowns. Like, they're so funny.
Yeah, it's
and
such a carefree nature to that show.
Yeah, and obviously glamour pusses, but I was just surprised how listen, they work very hard at what they do, and I was just happy to be there for the fun of it.
Right on. Yeah, well, I'm sure people enjoyed having you there.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch it up to old school Degrassi questions for a bit here. The main thing I wanted to know was, what was it like for you guys being, going to real high school and then pretending to go to this other high school? And did that affect your actual high school experience in a big way? Like, because I would have thought you guys must have been super cool in high school. Like, you're on that show, and was it like? I
mean, listen, Degrassi wasn't necessarily like a cool card to have with you when you were going through high school. I mean, listen, and also I think we had a lot of friends in the industry that were this. I went to a school for the arts. Pat was, always would come and hang out at parties from my high school with my group of friends. And I think you learn very quickly who really gives a shit about you being on Degrassi versus your friends at school who you're hanging with. And the same on cast. Like, it's like one of those things where you're just like, I have a great relationship with this person. I think that with school and with Degrassi, which was like school in a lot of ways as well, you find those people that you trust, and that mixture works really nicely. I'll tell you, there's like, very quickly, your high school doesn't care that you were on Degrassi. When they're very much like concerned about, whatever sport team they're on, whatever, like real school stuff. So they get over it pretty quickly. And but it's I had a lot of I had a lot of people sort of protect me also when I was in high school that didn't want people to like bother us when we were like, because people can get overwhelmed with like, why do they want to talk about Degrassi all the time? You know, if you're in, and they want to sort of protect you from that. And I'm sure Pat's had the same experience.
Yeah, no, I actually was the kind of person in high school that leaned towards the cast, being more friendly and more outgoing with them. I was a bit of an introvert in my real high school just because of, you know, before Degrassi, I was a very shy kid, very insecure. I don't remember going to one party with anybody that I went to actual high school with. But
You came to my high school parties.
Yeah, I went to all of Stefan's high school parties, and we would throw our own parties on the weekends, either at Amanda Cook's house, who played LD, or whoever was available that weekend.
Or your basement, Pat.
Or my basement, absolutely. So, I mean, my high school experience, when I look back fondly at it, it is with those cast members that I bonded with on the series, more so than my high school. Now, I have tons of high school friends that I still talk. Jesus, I married one of my high school girlfriends, you know, in real life. But, you know, in terms of those memories of my teenage years, it's all wrapped up with my castmates. But you guys see us as the actors and the characters on the show, where Stefan and I have a completely different memory of our Degrassi experience, because it was all behind the scenes. It was all offset, where we would vacation together and rent cottages together and whatnot. So
it's all pretty good memories, I gotta say. Like
absolutely.
they're all like, it was summer camp in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And like it's, you know, I remember certain things where I'm like, holy shit, that they shouldn't have done that, or we shouldn't have done that, whatever. But 90% of the stuff, it's like fantastic memories of what, it's a special way to grow up, I gotta say.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys had at least people that cared about the cast, as opposed to, you know, some child actors you hear about who are just completely exploited and no one's looking out for them. I don't know.
Listen, we all had our families that were looking after us as well. Like you couldn't have asked. You know, I'm almost across the board. You saw parents that really cared about what their kids were doing, let alone are they concentrating on school. Some, you know, there's people that were on that show that are lawyers now.
Nice.
And they were definitely, you know, they had parents that were making sure that they were, you know, keeping up as far as the rest of the world is concerned. And I think we sort of hopefully kept each other in check a fair amount. And that also, but you know, we have really good families. Pat's got the best parents. You know, I've got great parents, and they were like really important on keeping us, I think, grounded, and also going, enjoy what you're doing. You know.
No, but good parents is a huge thing. I mean, same for me. I have amazing parents. Normally, when we do the in-studio stuff here, my dad is the guy doing all the tech over there. So
right.
I'm close with my parents as well. And I think that's part of the reason I turned out pretty good, I think. You know, I'm not living on the streets or anything. I got a nice fiance. My kids are good, you know.
There you go.
Yeah, what else can you ask for, really?
Yeah.
For Degrassi, I also wanted to ask, did you guys, let's just say you couldn't have played the character that you played. What character would you next have wanted to play? Like, if you couldn't have been Snake and you couldn't have been Joey, what other Degrassi character would you have been auditioned for, let's just say?
Well, it's too bad that, you know, the character was so specific for the role of Arthur Kowalski, because I was more like Arthur in grade 9 than I was really like Joey, because I played Joey in a way that I thought a cool guy would be. Like
the Fonz or something, yeah.
Yeah, like I had nothing cool about me. I was just this wannabe, you know, I wanted to be liked by people so badly that I did anything and everything. I lit a firecracker in the grade 9 home ec class because somebody handed it to me on a dare and said, light it. And I wanted him to like me so badly that I did. I actually lit a firecracker in class and let it blow in the classroom. And I got sent to the principal's office and I almost got expelled for it.
Oh,
but they knew that I wasn't the mastermind behind it all because I was just too stupid to come up with the idea myself to do it. So they knew I was just a pawn. And that was really my whole childhood, back, you know, growing up till I got on the series where I started to have my own identity. But back in those elementary school days, I was just a very shy, awkward, insecure kid. So I related more to the Arthur Kowalski character than I did to the Joey Jeremiah character. Now, I will admit, I grew into the Joey character and I grew into, you know, my own personality as well by playing that character. But I think there was an insecurity about him that people saw right through the Joey character that was probably more Pat than Joey.
First of all, Pat's full of shit. He was very cool when he was younger. He was very confident and has all the insecurities of a teenager. But Pat, you were a cool kid when you were on the show. Even when you first showed up, you had a swagger. You had a belief in yourself, and that's important. And then, of course, you had those insecurities. But I love that you wanted to play Arthur. That's. But I listen. The truth is that Pat's a very, very charming man, and when it comes across in Joey and it comes across in Pat. So whatever he says, let's take it with a grain of salt. I auditioned for Joey Jeremiah, and I was pissed. Like, Joey's the most fun role. Okay,
Yeah.
like he does have the ability from being a total asshole, selling kids vitamins, saying they're drugs, to being heartbroken over this girl. Dealing with a kid that's like his mortal enemy that's HIV positive, and they have this great moment. Like, that character got to do so many growing activities in his high school years that it's the character that you kind of want to play, because it's just so much fun. Snake is fun in the sense that he's you get it very clear that Snake is a follower, and he loves Joey and Wheels and the Zit Remedy. And but it's very easy, the joke in my head is that the script would go, "Hey, Snake, let's steal your dad's car." Joey, I don't want to do that. Come on, Snake, let's steal your dad's car. Okay, Joey. It would be always.
He's kind of like a Millhouse in that way.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of fun in playing Snake, but Joey had some fun stuff to do, and that's always like, he got the heavy stuff, and he also got to be the super clown, and that's what I think all of us wanted to do, right? We all
there's
wanted
so much
the fun
range
stories and the heavy stories, So
Well, you remember during the audition, the workshops that we had. It was Arthur, Yick, Joey. Were there any other characters really that were developed?
I think Vula might have been a character. Stephanie K. Was Stephanie K a character at that point?
Yes, they were. But for male characters on the show, were they?
There was Yick and Joey and Arthur, I think, were it. And
maybe Rick, I can't remember.
I don't know. I mean, they were really doing some finding stories from new cast members as they went along, I think. So yeah, my character didn't exist. Amanda Steptoe's character really came from them loving her look and her, being gung-ho for the show. But I think a lot of us, sort of, they found something to write around us, So they had the guys that, like, Pat came in, and they're like, okay, that's our Joey Jeremiah. Oh, Nicole Stockman is our Stephanie K. But then, they know Stacey Mistician, but they haven't really developed a Caitlin character yet. But they're like, okay, now we're seeing what she can do, how we want to play her. This will be interesting. So, yeah, they were definitely growing with the cast.
That whole first season was basically character development for the entire
pretty much
cast. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are truly ingrained in the characters in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you guys also about the Zit Remedy, just briefly, which we mentioned, but everybody knows the song, and it's very clear from the documentary. And I also saw an interview that you did with Neil where he was also not a fan of the song. So it seems like you guys kind of dreaded it, especially by, after years of singing that song. What I want to know, this is just a fun question. Do you think there's any artist or band that could do it justice in a cover song? Or even just an artist that you would like to hear cover that song? Or you just never want to hear the song again?
Listen, I don't mind hearing the song. I just don't want to sing the song. I can't tell you how many times Pat and I are like, oh, they're going to ask us to sing the damn song, aren't they?
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
Okay, but I think the song is silly and fun, and I think we always enjoyed playing it. Like, those scenes were actually very fun in my mind. I don't know how you pull off that song. I challenge someone to make that song a hit.
Like a punk cover or something, maybe,
Oh, but and listen, there were a lot of punk covers. I think there were a lot of bands back in the day that would try to cover it, and I remember being at shows and like seeing a band, and they were like, "Oh my God, we covered Everybody Wants Something." I'm like, "Oh, thanks for not bringing me up on stage." But I don't know, Pat. Do you think?
Well, I used a great version from an East Coast band at the tail end of the documentary.
Yeah, I caught that. Yeah,
a version of it, which I thought was really good. I've heard of and have a couple of versions of it by other artists that have done a really great job. I think it'd be hilarious to have like some really famous Canadian band do it. I can't
like
think
Sloan
of anyone.
Or something.
Who?
Like Sloan.
Somebody. I can't.
Yeah.
Think off the top of my head. I mean, even a hip hop version of it would be kind of hilarious. So, but yeah, it is one of those songs that I'm most proud of that. People remember it fondly, and they remember the band fondly, and it'll always be something that is attached to the show as its own little wonderment. It's an amazing little thing that people like, and I explained it in the documentary about why I think people like the band so much. But yeah, I mean, for Stefan and I, that after years and years and years of singing it, it's just like one of those punches in the gut that when we have.
I mean, I don't know why they didn't write another song for us. Like, I mean, it's
really.
You know, 5 years of one song is ridiculous. You know, it's like, you know, you figure they write us, but I think they like the fact that, like, yeah, they have one song.
Yeah, but it almost becomes unbelievable from like a writing standpoint that those characters wouldn't get sick of playing it, you know?
Not necessarily. I bet they, you know, I can see them going week to week, like, man, I really put a little riff on that one. Okay, we're almost perfect.
Your
songs
songs
are
are
almost
awesome,
perfect.
Snake.
Yeah.
Maybe you and I should release a new song just for shits and giggles. We'll come up with a new song.
There you go. You heard
we'd
it here
be
first.
so torn apart. Everyone would be like, it's not, everybody wants something.
Yeah, you'll never live up to that.
Let's talk, Pat. We'll figure it out.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys will blow the roof off of it. When you guys did Schools Out, I want to ask, was that like extremely, like almost too dark? Because I remember, especially with that being the end at the time, when I saw it, I was like, holy hell, this is, you know, the show has always had its heavy moments, but this thing is like packed. Basically, the whole movie is, you know, it's kind of depressing almost. There's some lessons to be learned and whatever, but did you find it was kind of a bleak way to kind of go out?
Stefan?
Well, first of all, I do think it is a pretty awesome downer of a ending for a series. I don't think it would be Degrassi if you didn't go out that way, to tell you the truth.
Valid.
I think also that watching with, you know, Pat and I have done some watch Schools Out with an audience. And there's obviously a lot of funny things in there that they love, some of which are intentional, some of which are not. And but there's a lot of joy, I think, in Schools Out. It does end with a pretty horrible scenario. You know, it is at one point the summer of fun and everything's awesome. And, you know, Joey's got 2 girls and, you know, Snake's a lifeguard, hooray.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone's like, Wheels is working on his car, Lucy's going away to school or whatever, you know, they're all like doing stuff. And then, yes, it ends terribly. And if anyone has not watched Schools Out, I suggest you find it because it is dark in the end. But I do think there is a lot of stuff that is super fun, laugh out loud, enjoyable about Schools Out. And yeah, I was really surprised how much joy it actually brought people to watch as a group. So it's not like a downer, like you're like, I feel like I've just watched a documentary about, you know, the Holocaust. But I'll tell you, there are things in this that are awful, and there are things in it that I think are full of joy, and that's why I think people get such a kick out of it. So
I'm just glad people can see it now. At the time that I was into Degrassi originally, I had heard about it, but there was nowhere to find it because the internet was still kind of in its prepubescent stage, you know, and so that was a little bit of a bummer at the time. I don't even remember where I eventually.
Don't mind my wife; she's just.
No. I want to say thank you for helping facilitate all this, and thank you to Danny as well.
He says thank you for helping facilitate this.
Okay, great. I just gotta get some cookies. Sorry.
Hey.
Hi, sweetie. Hi, girl.
Hi, sweetie. Love you. Bye. She's gone.
I actually text her now when I want to speak to Stefan because she answers me right away. And I have to go through.
I'm really bad at that, yeah.
Well, I have to go through Stefan's people whenever I want to send him a message.
He's a man.
But Schools Out, you know what? You have so many shows that try to wrap everything up in a nice little bow, and Degrassi was never about that. And I think our fans deserve to be, you know, to have the guns blazing at the end of that movie. Just with this, I think there was a gasp from the Canadian audience that watched it originally in 91, a belief that I can't believe the show ended like that. And I think that resonated for years, and the longing for more, to find out what happened to Wheels, what happened to Snake, what happened to...
Yeah, it was the loose ends, yeah.
So there was so much that was just left, and I think for almost a decade, people, up until the Jonovision reunion, people were just like, what the hell? So, yeah, I think it was just a brilliant way to end the series, and so that people were longing for more, because we were still at a very high mark on in terms of ratings, and people were still discovering the show for the first time and watching it and enjoying it and appreciating it. So I think the show could have, in theory, gone on longer. But the reality is that We were a non-union show. Many of the actors needed to go on and move on to university. Everybody was ready to just go their own way, and they couldn't continue the series with the same original cast.
Even on Next Class, you have a 5-year window, and then they're bringing in younger kids, right?
Yeah.
So
it starts to look weird eventually.
Yeah, who would have thought that Degrassi, the Next Gen, and the Next Class, and it was 17 seasons, Stefan? Is that how many you guys did?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
That's bananas.
And over
Cuckoo bananas, I should say.
over 700 episodes in total, Stefan?
Something like that. Wow. And it's so funny that and it is true from the very beginning of junior high all the way through, is that every generation has their class, and no other class will compare. So the people that grew up with, Joey and Snake don't really get Manny and Jimmy as much, Jimmy and people who love Jimmy and Emma don't love Claire and Eli. And there's like 500 kids that go to this school at this point. Yeah. And it is very generational in the sense that they are going through very similar problems, whether it be, deciding to have an abortion, which I think we've done 5 times now, or experimenting with a new drug, whether it be acid with, Shane back in the day, or ecstasy on Next Gen, or Molly. It's constantly changing, whatever the latest drug is. But it's, the stakes are still the same. It's a different world for them. You even saw like the difference between the beginning of Next Generation, where Manny shows her boobs on like a video at a party, and the whole school freaks out, versus a couple of years ago when we're trying to do a show about like sexting, and there were not a lot of cast members who hadn't received one or given one, and it was their attitude towards it was very different from where we were 10 years prior, where it was taboo. Now it was like it's part of life, it happens. And so there was less of a stigma about it. And I was like, wow. So, as much as things change, they do not stay the same, everyone has their generation. And, but it is definitely, you try to stay true to those roots of Degrassi, which is that it's not necessarily going to have a happy ending. And that character has to carry those emotions through the rest of the show. You don't just get to next week, start over again. And, the show was never big on bringing in a character that had got AIDS, and then we're never going to see them again. You wanted to experience a little bit of what that character was going through and how they were affected by it. And they stay at that, they stay at the school. So.
With what you were saying about the generational stuff, I would tend to agree, because I haven't seen some of the later seasons from maybe Next Generation. I think I made it to about season 8, and then I started having my own kids, and I just didn't have time anymore. But I was in a sweet spot with being born in '85, because I started seeing those reruns on CBC of you guys in the late '90s. And then when I moved into high school, it was like the Next Generation started up. So I kind of did love both of those almost equally. I felt I could relate to both versions pretty well. So I don't know, maybe I'm just that unique.
No, I think that you were part of that generation that really discovered it after we'd wrapped up the first show. And, I think that's what freaked everyone out, is that it was becoming more popular in reruns after school. And they were like, oh my God, there really is still an audience for this show. We're coming up on 10 years. There's probably a reason to bring it back. So.
What was that like for you guys to come back to those characters, and not even in like a small way? Because if you look at something like Star Trek, right? They did the Next Generation. You had a couple of the guys from the original series, but it was always like a glorified cameo. They'd be there for one episode. Whereas you guys had, several season arcs, and Stefan, especially, you've been in like every series ever. So what was it like to just play those characters for so long and age with them while you're actually aging in real life,
Honestly, Pat, it's like, for you, I think that we both came back as adults. I think that they didn't even try to write them as Joey and Snake as kids. I know that Pat wasn't crazy about the idea of him being a used car salesman, because that's a little on the nose.
That sounds shady,
but I think that at that point we're going to play them differently. It was sort of rediscovering. It's not like I think we came back and go, got to find my Snake vibe, like
get the hat for Joey.
Yeah.
Well, again, Stefan said it perfectly. They didn't try to write us as our original characters from the original series when they brought us back. And definitely Joey made a 180 in terms of his moral, and he became the dad and everything. I do remember having meetings with the producers early on, before the first episode, where we discussed, would Joey be a computer repair guy, and would he pop into the school from time to time to fix the computers? I'm like, no, that's just not, good. He wouldn't be a teacher. Snake would obviously be the teacher, if anybody. So they said, well, what about a used car salesman? And I was at that point, I was like, fine, whatever works. Whatever gets me back on the show and makes it work, fine. Because ultimately, we were just supposed to be in that first double episode reunion episode, the very first episodes of TNG. And I
mean, it's funny, Pat, when you think about like what they did with Cobra Kai. I don't know if you've watched that by any chance, and how they made Daniel. Yeah, and he became a car salesman as well. And they actually shot me a little message on Twitter about how Degrassi really inspired them for Cobra Kai as far as the next generation was concerned, and that they saw that we pulled it off, bringing back an older generation and a younger generation, and that they thought they gave us kudos.
Oh, that's awesome, Stefan, because I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I love how they've incorporated the movie with this series. And how
I love that show so much. I think it's so. The final episode of season 2. I was like, that's the best television I've watched in a while.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know if you've got a chance to see it.
I have not, and now I'm going to blow your minds. I have not seen the original Karate Kid.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
you can virtually hate me now.
No, you just have some homework. I'll tell you, watch it, the original Karate Kid, because it stands out. 2 and 3, it gets a little edgy, but I mean, I'm sorry, we're talking about another show now, but
hey, that's fine.
Really,
that's what
really
podcasting's all about.
And there is definitely a feeling that is very similar to Degrassi in a lot of ways, as far as generations, and how they're affected. So it's good.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Honestly, I think the reason I've ever watched Karate Kid is one of those movies that was a little before my time, and then as I grew up, you see so many parodies, and it just gets mentioned so much that it becomes this farce version of what it was or whatever. But I should just shut up and watch it, because I eventually watched Rocky, and I was like, holy fuck, this is a good movie. Why didn't I watch this movie?
I guarantee you'll watch it, you'll go, oh, this is not the parody. I thought I'd be filled with like, the goofiness of it. It's very sort of like almost an art film by today's standards.
Oh, nice.
The pace of it. So same way when you look at Rocky now, you're like, no one makes an action movie like that anymore.
No, it was so good. So much better than I thought it would be. I thought, I'm not like a big sports guy. I didn't think it was going to be a great film for me personally. And I couldn't believe how like sort of artistic it was and just, legendary. I was going to ask you guys, this kind of relates to what we were just talking about. Since you guys had the Next Generation, and obviously Star Trek did that, what do you think would be a cool franchise that deserves the Next Generation treatment? I don't know. Maybe that put you on the spot a little bit, but I thought it would just be a fun question.
It is a good question. I'm trying to think of some of my favorite shows growing up. I mean, a lot of shows have already done the comebacks or the,
on some shows you don't want to mess with. Some of them go out perfectly, and it's just leave it alone,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, personally, I was really excited for the 90210 reboot, and I was severely disappointed. And I was like, I was really surprised how I really wanted it to work.
Which reboot? Has been the other reboot or the one with the original cast?
I'm talking about the reboot. Like that's sorry, not the reboot, not the one with Shanae. The one that was just recently, where they're behind the scenes.
Yeah, and, it was like a mockumentary almost or something.
Yeah, right? And I think we've watched something since that, or in between there, that was actually that worked that way. I can't remember what it would have been, but it just didn't fly. It just wasn't. It wasn't engaging at all, and it's a shame. Yeah. I don't know, Pat. Can you think of a show that you'd want to see a reboot of?
I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a spin-off, a Joey Snake spin-off series.
That would be awesome.
Where the dark side of the Zit Remedy? I don't know.
Sure, why not? As far as Canadiana, I bet you if you did it right, you could do a Beachcombers reboot.
As soon as you said Canadian television, I was thinking Littlest Hobo.
Oh, trust me, that's been in the works for a while. I don't know if they know how to do it anymore because, first of all, I don't know if you can call it the Littlest Hobo anymore. I think that's derogatory in some with the dogs. So I'm not sure if that's a possibility. I think there's a reboot of Danger Bay about to come back, which I think I'm just curious because you gotta age with the times a little bit, so they won't be as. It's the same with Degrassi. It won't be as earnest, I think, as the first time around. Yeah. So it is interesting when you take today's world and go, how can I take a reboot of something?
Aren't they doing like a dramatic reboot of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
They are.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. There was a short that went around. I don't know if you've seen the short.
No, but I remember when it was going around. I just never checked it out.
You got to check it out. It's intense. It's really crazy. It's like, oh, okay, that's the reality of what would have really happened, in Bel-Air with the Fresh Prince. But there was enough interest that like, we got to make this into a show.
Just a gritty reboot.
Yeah. But Pat and I always like talk about, man, there could be a Dark Side of Joey and Snake show that we should do or something like that. It's just,
Or at the very least in like 2050 or something, there should be like Degrassi retirement community and get as many people.
We've been joking about that for years, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't want to wait till 2050. That's the problem. I was saying to Stefan like a week and a half ago, we got together for a quick beer at your bar, your pub there. Time to plug the pub. What's it called again? Dog and the Bear.
Dog and Bear. But we're not open right now except on our patio because there's COVID.
You got in there just in the nick of time.
Yeah, so we have for 28 days we're closed like everywhere else in Ontario, but we have a lovely set of picnic tables. We're at Queen and Dovercourt on the west side of Toronto. And
I've seen some pics on Instagram. Looks like a nice place.
It's fun. It is when it's open.
Yeah. What a bummer, eh?
Yeah.
I know what I think. Stefan and I would be great on a reality show, and I've been bugging him for a couple of years now to do Amazing Race with me.
That'd be cool. I was just talking to Hal and Joanne from Body Break because they were on the first season of that, and they said it was really intense and they wouldn't want to do it again.
See, I know, and there's a part of me that I go back and forth on this all the time. I go, it would be fun to do that with Pat, but
you guys should just rent like a camper van and travel across Canada, stopping at like all the landmarks or something. That would be awesome.
We kind of did something like that called Degrassi Talks.
All the that was really serious, wasn't it?
Yeah, that had messages. This is just Pat and I just going to eat places across Canada. That's
that'd be cool.
The show would be
a food cooking show. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Speaking of the next generation, I wanted to mention Drake. Like, what was that like? Did you guys ever think that he was going to blow up that huge, or was it clear when you worked with him that he was heading places?
I mean, my thing is that there was a very good possibility that all these kids were going to go places. But I think that you don't recognize what someone's doing behind the scenes. Also, listen, there's no doubt that Aubrey is super charming and super dedicated, like back in the day, and was working so hard at night, coming in and shooting the show. But who gets this big?
Right.
Like,
that's what I mean. He's like Michael Jackson big now. Like,
we're not talking about even like The Weeknd, he's like this icon around the world in a way that's like, you can't, like, I don't know how you do that.
I don't know.
I think he basically has a corporation around him that is Drake. And, he's trademarked himself basically, but I'm in awe of him for doing this, to tell you the truth, because it is so ridiculously huge. But it's not like, this is beyond talent at this point. This is like, he is a entity to himself that is like a product that I personally really enjoy. And I don't know. I don't think you recognize. He was goofy as everyone else on that show. You know.
He started rapping on the show in some episodes, I remember too.
Well, he didn't want to. And because he was like, he's like, and this is where you can see an artist behind him, is that he's like, I don't want to portray Jimmy, who hasn't rapped on this show once, to be good. I don't think it makes sense that all of a sudden he's like my level.
Dropping mad bars,
Yeah. So he's like, if I do it, I want it to be not that good. And we're like, I think we were all like, oh, that's great. Because at first he was like, I don't want to do it. But he did come around in the end as far as just saying, let's just figure out a way that it feels legit. And then, like, that makes the show better when you come up with ideas like that. He really wanted to make it so that he was like separating himself so no one thought that was Drake rapping. And also, let's be legit for who Jimmy is and what the level would be at, his level of ability would be at. So, no, I mean.
And that's an artist. I mean, that's
yeah.
Who's
I don't think you recognize that someone's going to be that big. It's just like, I don't think it's. He was always talented, and there were so many talented people, And I remember hearing his first tracks and I was like, oh my God, they're so good. But I don't think, and he would say, he's like, yeah, I had dinner with Quincy Jones last night. And you're like, what? Oh, you're doing this for a career? This is real? And you see them go on this tangent, but this crazy, success. And I think it's ridiculously exciting to watch. I don't know if you can pinpoint a time where you go, that's the guy who's going to make it.
Yeah. Well, it still must be.
But yeah, I always knew he was going to make it.
Yeah. You were his manager behind the scenes. Yeah.
Sure.
There were a lot of singers that were actors on the series. I mean, Jake Epstein was a performer, and
he did a lot of musicals and stuff, right?
Cassie Steele released an album.
Oh, nice.
A lot of those kids release albums. They're trying. It's.
Well, I know Cassie did some voices on Rick and Morty too, so I thought that was super cool.
Yeah. No, and Jake, you were saying Jake Epstein played Spider-Man on Broadway.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, a lot of talented kids for sure.
For me at the time, it was just, oh, great, another kid who wants to be a musician as well as an actor, and it's just like I appreciated their enthusiasm, but I honestly didn't take it seriously until 08, 09 when he signed on with Lil Wayne, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So, and I know he had a rough couple of years initially.
Listen, he worked his ass off.
Yeah,
he was working his ass off when he was recording, but also, I just don't know if we, in our minds, saw being from Toronto as some sort of commodity that you could work around the world. And I think when we saw that he was going I'm not pretending I'm from Compton. I'm not a gangbanger. I'm this young man from Canada.
Yeah.
That's half Jewish and half Black. There's a lot to be said there that's oh, he's just going to start telling stories that we haven't heard before also. And that's, I think, was really refreshing. He wasn't putting on anything. That's just Aubrey. That's just Drake,
Cool.
He's being genuine. That's what people want. Yeah.
You think he'll buy the Raptors, Stefan?
What's that?
You think he'll one day buy the Raptors?
I don't think he needs to. I think they basically said you can do whatever you want here. So for him to want to invest that money, maybe he would one day. I don't think he needs to, really. I think they're like, you run this place, right? You can do whatever you want. Who knows? I mean, I can't imagine that, a kid that grew up watching his favorite team to be such a part of it at that point wouldn't also at this point be going I have some ideas as far as how this team is managed. But, who can complain about the Raptors right now? I think that they're making really good choices. I think Nick Nurse is awesome for to sort of talk about the Raptors that you got to imagine that Drake is going, they're in pretty good shape right now. And look what we did without Kawhi. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, listen, God knows, maybe you will.
Time will tell. Yeah.
Time will tell.
I want to actually touch on Kevin Smith too, just to ask if you guys had a favorite sort of on-set moment with him, because I've always been a massive fan of Kevin Smith, and I was very happy when he came into Degrassi because it was two worlds that I loved sort of merging together, Is he as cool as he seems in person,
I mean, at this point, he's Kevin, he's super fun, and I adore the man. I mean, he actually got me to I got to do my first directing on Degrassi because of him.
Was that the zombie thing?
No, I was doing webisodes at one point. So I was given an opportunity to sort of produce and write and direct these webisodes. And I did about 80 of them. And that was sort of a learning curve. And by the time I was finishing them up, Kevin was supposed to come and direct. He couldn't direct because there's a CanCon factor that says that you can. And he said the only reason the only way he would still come up to do it is if that I was directing it. And I thought it was a joke. I thought it was an honest to God joke. But yeah, he was very instrumental in me, getting a chance to direct that way. But
you've done a lot of directing since then too, right?
I did about 60 episodes of Degrassi.
Wow.
And I think I was supposed to be working on a show this summer. I do the show that's called Holly Hobby for the last 2 seasons, but we're going to hopefully start again in March. But yeah, so yeah, I will say the most fun I've had with Kevin was in a Drake video. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
where he sells me weed, which was pretty funny. So
That's
that was
pretty
that was like being in, and I told him it was like totally like being in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Like it was.
It makes you feel like
felt,
you're part of the Isk universe or whatever.
Yeah, a lot. So much so that I felt really satisfied because it was like not Snake really. You know, it was definitely the Jay and Silent Bob version of Snake. So
Nice.
It was good.
Okay, well, I don't want to waste too much more of your guys' time. I'm going to ask you guys, this will actually be the last time I ask anyone this because it's the last episode of the season. But we've been asking everyone this season, if you could be endowed with a superpower, what would it be and why? And we don't accept flying because that seems like kind of obvious. Everyone wants to fly.
Would I be a good hero or a bad hero?
Well, that's a whole other question right there.
I'm watching The Boys right now.
Oh, dude, so good.
I'm just loving Homelander. He's such a psychopath.
He gives me the creeps.
Yeah. I was always a fan of Spider-Man growing up. He was my alter ego as a kid, and I wanted to be Spider-Man, you know, the quirky, fun kid that had these powers that made him just extraordinary. And my ultimate goal was to have, you know, the first issue of Spider-Man, which I ultimately got to do as an adult. But
nice.
Being Spider-Man, climbing walls, you know, having amazing agility and reaction time and spider senses and things like that, that would be a fun power to have as a hero.
Well, that's a slew of powers, and normally we don't accept that, but you're Joey Jeremiah, so I don't give a fuck. You can be Spider-Man. That's awesome. Stefan?
Well, you know, funny enough, I was watching, this is really embarrassing because my wife will be like, yeah, it's true. So during the pandemic, I've been watching a lot of crap television, like a lot of old crap television. And Disney Plus has like all these old Spider-Man, like, and his amazing friends. And
oh yeah, I love that show.
Well, yeah, and then Michelle was like, I've like watched it a lot. And I think Iceman would be a cool power to have. If I can't fly and I can't, you know, the idea that he's able to build bridges and slide along them, I was like, that's fast.
Pretty cool, yeah.
I would take that. I think I don't know, you know, I think I remember being a kid and being in the shower and watch the water roll off your arm and pretending you're shooting it out like you've got like some superpower. But nice. I don't know. That's after watching some bad television lately, that's the superpower I'd want.
Well, this will speak to my geekiness, but in the comic books, Iceman is actually an omega level mutant, and he can like regenerate from a molecule of water, and he's one of the most powerful mutants out there, really.
There you go. I actually heard that Shia LaBeouf was in talks recently to play him.
Oh, really?
I'm not even joking about that. Yeah.
And Iceman recently came out in the comics a couple of years
I
ago,
heard,
too.
Yeah. No, he's an interesting character.
Yeah, he is cool. All right, well, man, thank you so much to both of you again. This has been an amazing experience, and if you're ever in Ottawa, come on down.
Awesome.
Hope to make it back out there.
Thank you. All the best to both of you. Stay safe out there.
We'll do. Pat, I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Okay, bye.